Hi, Beaver. This is Cindy Clark from PAC-B TV again at Beaver Lake. And I have with me Amanda, the director, and Steph, our expert flower lady. And Amanda, thank you. Thank you, Steph, for coming and joining us here. Why don't you start in on what project you've done here, how you got here, and then Steph can take it over and tell us what plants are which. Okay, how's that sound?
Perfect.
Okay,
Sounds
good. All right.
So we're right outside of the visitor center of Beaver Lake Nature Center. The visitor center is surrounded by beautiful gardens, as you can see right behind me. This year, early in spring, we started out with a little bit of a blank slate. Most of these gardens didn't have as many flowers in them as they do now. They had lots of species that weren't native to this area. So we set out with the goal of restoring and revitalizing these gardens, bringing back native plants to help support our native pollinators and our native birds who will use these plants as habitat. We brought on Steph Reeves, our gardener extraordinaire, to help design these gardens, do all of the labor, choose all of the plants with her team of volunteers, and they've really made wonders here, as you can see behind me. This project is supported by the Friends of Beaver Lake Nature Center, who have helped us purchase all of these native plants and are very supportive of our goals here.
Now, where do you get the plants if you don't already have them?
From local nurseries
in
the area, regional nurseries in the area. We look specifically for native plants that you would find in this area because animals can use those plants much better and their pollinators are much more efficient when you have native species using native plants. So that was our goal, to bring in as many native plants as possible.
Now, you wouldn't say somebody had in their garden, they had extra native plants. You wouldn't take plants from, say, my garden or something, because wouldn't you have to be careful as far as maybe some kind of a disease or something like that that you didn't know about, or
Sure, we want to be careful about introducing pests, some non-native pests like jumping worms, for example, that live in the soil. We want to be careful about those things. So we really, we like to form a relationship with the nurseries and work with them directly. And our hope is that, and Steph will talk more about this, but the hope is that as these plants go to seed, we'll collect the seed in the fall, we'll be able to germinate these in the spring, so we really won't have to buy more plants. We have all of the raw materials we need to expand our gardens and to put some more flowering plants in other areas that don't have it.
Oh, okay. All right. Now, Steph, how about you tell us what some of the plants are, the names of the plants, and
Sure.
If there's any special growing instructions or anything like that.
Sure. So the good thing about native plants is that they're really tough and they like growing in this area. So they really don't need a ton of extra work, which is awesome. So they're not going to need a ton of extra water. They don't need fertilizer. You don't have to put any pesticides or herbicides down. They're super tough and they can thrive in this area all on their own, which is one of the great things about natives. So this is our outdoor classroom over here. The idea is that you could walk in it. Kids can come around and sit down here and be immersed in the garden and learn while they're in it. Some of the plants that are in bloom right now, we have Heliopsis, which is an oxeye sunflower, so it'll be really tall, these beautiful yellow blooms. Over here, another nice tall yellow one. This is cutleaf coneflower. This is a really nice option if you have a shadier spot. What's interesting about designing at Beaver Lake is there are different sun requirements, light requirements, soil, water, in all different parts of the garden. So halfway through the day, this whole area is shaded. So this is a really nice plant for your shadier area. It will have really nice blooms. It's hard to find something that's going to bloom in a shady spot. Down here we have yarrow. The native yarrow is white, but you can find a lot of really pretty cultivars that are pinks or yellows. But the native one is white, so like Amanda was saying, everything here is almost completely native, almost 100% native. Really just helping our pollinators, helping our insects eat and grow with the plants that they can feed off of. Another yellow one, we have Coreopsis. It's a really nice hardy plant. Deer shouldn't like it, but here they do. So that's something that we're learning. Something here we're learning is that the deer will eat the plants even if the internet tells you that they won't. So that's something to think about. Too bad you guys weren't here about a week earlier. This is Liatris, or blazing star. It has these beautiful tall purple spikes. The whole entire thing will be totally filled out with flowers. It's a little bit at the end of its life cycle right now, but these are absolutely gorgeous, absolutely stunning to have in your garden. Some mountain mint down here. Bees, flies, wasps love to pollinate these, use these, so it's just a nice filler, has that nice white kind of green look. Again, something that's done blooming is Golden Alexander. This is a really nice one to have in your garden because it's a really early spring bloomer. So beautiful yellow flowers. You can see the dried flower structures on here, but you really want to make sure that you have something blooming all times of the year. Early spring all the way to the end of the season in the fall, so that pollinators have something to eat all the time. Just a few other things in this garden. We have Joe Pye. They like really wet areas, and as you can see down here, we've had a ton of rain. This area is getting a little washed out from the rain we have, but these plants all like to be in wetter areas, so they're doing just fine. A nice clethra bush. You can see there's a lot of insects and flies on it right now, so they're great pollinators. So something else we're focusing on in these gardens is having a lot of diversity. You don't want to just have one or two species of plants. You want to have as many plants as possible to support all different insects, all different birds at all different times in the season.
Okay, now
Can I
we'll
show the caterpillar?
Oh, we have to look at the caterpillar. I'm sorry, man, almost forgot.
Oh, no,
All right,
it's okay.
you go ahead and show us the caterpillar.
It's very exciting, absolutely.
One of the things we discover in the garden is that butterflies will lay their eggs on host plants. So we've had a lot of monarch butterflies visiting the garden. We have plenty of milkweed in here. And I was just checking on this milkweed this morning and found this hungry caterpillar. This is a monarch caterpillar that feeds almost exclusively on this milkweed plant here. The milkweed plant is toxic to other insects, so monarch butterflies are specialists on it. And you can see a lot of the leaves are eaten on this milkweed here. So this is a great plant that supports monarch butterflies. As butterflies, the butterflies will come and drink the nectar from the flowers when they're blooming. They'll stop by, lay an egg, and the caterpillar will feed on the leaves of that milkweed plant, pupate, and eventually become a butterfly.
Now, what's this little hanging thing?
This hanging thing is our wasp trap, our yellow jacket trap.
Okay.
Yellow jackets, they're part of the ecosystem as well, and they are beneficial. They can eat some agricultural pests, but here we need to keep the yellow jacket population down because we have 300,000 people visiting us every year.
It's a balance. It's a balance between having it look beautiful and be perfect for us to consume, and then also for our pollinators and all of our insects and birds and everything like that. So it's a balance. Yeah.
Nice balance. Now, what do we have behind us here?
So right behind us is our meadow. So we actually started this from seed. Everything else we, grew.
So this, I'm not going to touch it because those little hairs on that caterpillar say, do not touch me. But this is a caterpillar of the milkweed tussock moth, or milkweed tiger moth. So it's also a specialist on the milkweed plant that I just showed you that the monarch caterpillar on. This one will become a moth, however. So I'm actually going to see if I can pick this guy up with a leaf and put him on a milkweed plant. Let's see if he'll take the bait. Or at least
now he wants to go back where he came from.
And he may be just ready to pupate, meaning that he is going to stop being a caterpillar, go into that chrysalis or the cocoon stage, and they'll go under the ground in that stage. So he might just be looking for a place to do that.
Well, you can't do it there. You can't get through.
I know.
He's heading back.
He's heading back to the garden.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Leave him.
Yeah.
But they're really beautiful caterpillars, and those hairs tell you it can cause a rash or or itching and stinging. So you never want to. It's a good rule of thumb: never touch any caterpillar that has spines or hairs on it.
I never knew that. Well, I've learned something today.
Perfect.
Good observation there.
I know.
Yeah, and
There he goes.
you will find those all over the milkweed plants as well. So just like the monarch caterpillars, you'll find the tussock moth caterpillar eating your milkweed plants happily. So, but that does bring us to the meadow. So we seeded this early spring. We made sure to take all the invasive species out that were in there, minimally tilling, because every time you till, every time you disturb the soil, you bring weed seeds up to the surface, which means more weeds for you to take care of later. But we started this from seed. So we had a really nice seed mix that has lots of native grasses and native perennials, as well as some annuals. You'll see all of like the black-eyed Susans in there to give us some color this year. And then next year we'll have Monarda, Coreopsis, Liatris, Baptisia, butterfly weeds, lots of different perennials in here. So really, if you want to walk through it, I'll show you. The idea is that you would walk through and you would be completely immersed in a meadow. So it would be wall-to-wall flowers that are blooming from early spring to late fall to give pollinators something to have, eat, drink all season long.
So this is part of a 2-year project to revitalize and restore a lot of the garden areas at Beaver Lake Nature Center. And we want to make sure people know that this is habitat restoration in progress. We're creating a healthier environment for our native wildlife and pollinators. You know, the gardens look, there's a lot of bare soil, let's just say right now, but next year this will really grow in. And you know, the goal is for this to be completely filled in with native plants, creating habitat, food, shelter, nesting habitat for animals and insects. Next year, we'll get to some other areas in the garden. We have our frog pond that we're excited to incorporate some aquatic plants into. And then our welcome sign as you enter Beaver Lake. We want you to be able to see native plants wherever you go. And our hope is that people will look at these gardens and see how easy this is to do in your own landscape, in your own yard, and to teach people how to incorporate native plants into their landscape. You have to put in a little extra work to find those plants, but we're here as a resource for you. Steph is a wealth of knowledge. Once a month during the summer, we do gardener chats. You can just stop on by and meet up with Steph, and she's happy to share everything in her brain with you and consult with you on what plants would be great to put in your garden. So we hope to have that back next summer if you swing by, and you can join us on Fridays for pollinator walks to see who's visiting. There's tons of activity, lots of bumblebees, hummingbirds, butterflies, beetles, and even wasps that are pollinators in our garden. So there's always something new to see when you're in here.
Yep.
Well, let's see. We'll take a little walk down here. Now this garden extends right down to this point here.
This whole garden is this whole kind of peanut-shaped structure, as well as the smaller garden on that side. This we've kind of deemed our pollinator area, and even though all of the gardens are great for pollinators, this one is really meant to attract hummingbirds, butterflies with bright reds and pinks and purples. So there's not a ton of reds growing right now, but like Amanda has said, this is a work in progress. It's a restoration. So some of these plants we put in, they're really teeny tiny. If you look at this one, this is little blue stem. He's a native grass. So small, but he'll get nice and big. So next year, these plants will be filled in, the soil will be filled in. That means less weeds, and you'll just see lots of different colors, lots of different shapes and sizes of plants than you see right now. We might get lucky and see a hummingbird on that feeder, but there's a lot of plants in here that hummingbirds do like. Anything that has a tubular flower is perfect for a hummingbird. We can zoom in on some or look at some over there. We have cardinal flower right now in bloom. They're beautiful red flowers. Those are huge hummingbird magnets. But something we wanted to work on too in this project was increasing the diversity of plants that we used. So I had mentioned some native grasses, but don't be scared away from using grasses. They're a great thing to incorporate into your gardens to break up a lot of the flowers, a lot of the foliage. If you turn around and look back there, there's really tall grasses. That's big blue stem. It just breaks up the garden a little bit and gives you different textures, gives you different feels throughout. So lots of things blooming over on this side. Again, we have yarrow. It's this really nice flower, white flower. Next year when it comes in, it'll be nice and full and bushy. Phlox, a lot of people have garden phlox. There is native phlox, so if you love phlox, you can get some native varieties and incorporate those into your gardens. And like Amanda has said, this doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to rip out your entire garden and put in all natives. You can start small with just a couple plants. Something that I'm doing at home is I do have a ton of natives, but I have a lot of hostas, and even though they're pretty, they don't do much for our pollinators, much for our environment. So I'm slowly digging out hostas and replacing them with a native plant. So it can be as simple as just replacing one of your plants with a native, or you can dig out a little section and pick a couple plants like milkweeds. Start small, don't overwhelm yourself. It's totally doable, and these plants are absolutely gorgeous. So don't worry about it being too wild or too crazy. There's a lot of different options for whatever style you like.
Got some mushrooms.
Yeah, there's some mushrooms growing. Nice and wet. We've had all this rain, which is good and bad. We do have some plants in here that don't really like to be wet, and they have decided they will pass away. But then there was a lot of other plants that love being wet, and they're just thriving. Again, something that's really nice about natives is they're really tough, they're really hardy. You can pretty much put them anywhere and they'll do well, with the exception of putting something that likes to be dry in a really wet spot. But overall, the natives are gonna thrive wherever you put them, which is a really big perk of putting them in your garden. Frog pond. This is something that we're working on next year to restore, to add plants to. This year we've been working on maintaining it, weeding, cleaning it up. And something at Beaver Lake that we do is we don't use any pesticides, any herbicides, any chemicals really to take care of the weeds. We rely solely on hand weeding with tools, shovels, and we have volunteers come in and help us. My volunteers have been so helpful, and if anyone out there is interested in this, wanting to learn more about natives and to help out a little bit out at Beaver Lake, come here and volunteer. We'd love to have you. But this year, we're really just maintaining it, kind of making it look a little bit cleaner. And next year, our plan is to landscape all behind there. There are a lot of good natives in there right now. There's some Joe Pye that I can see. There's probably some swamp milkweed. You can see some red monarda. There's a lot of mints and irises and marsh marigold in here. So this is an awesome place for us to play around with some different plants that love to be wet. It's a great area for kids to come. Families love to look at the frogs. And you might get a look at a snapping turtle if you come by. He's hiding in there somewhere. Can't find him right now, but he's in there. But yeah, this is one of the areas that we're planning on updating, restoring next year. All right, welcome to our sensory gardens. This is a really awesome part of the park. There's 4 different quadrants and each focus on a different sensation. So we have smell, touch, taste, and sight, and each one of these boxes focus on just that. We have a lot of mint, there's lavender, roses, there's yarrow, fennel, coneflower, Climbing up here, we have 2 really nice honeysuckle vines, trumpet vines, and it's just a really nice educational piece, a nice place in the park for kids to come to really involve all their senses and just learn in different ways. Something that we really like to do here at Beaver Lake is incorporate education in any way we can so kids can learn and have fun while they're doing it. So this is a really, really nice area for kids and families and really anyone to just involve their senses in a new way to learn.
Well, thanks for coming on a tour of our gardens today. Don't forget Golden Harvest Festival, our 45th year, is coming up September 9th and 10th. So make a plan to join us for all sorts of great events and activities that day. Definitely won't want to miss Beaver Lake's famous homemade donuts, fresh and hot out of the fryer. 3 stages of entertainment, food trucks, games, activities, crafts, free canoeing. It's going to be a great day. So make a plan to come out for that. We can also always use volunteers. It takes about 300 different volunteers throughout the weekend to help make that a success. So join us for that and volunteer if you'd like. And become a member of Beaver Lake Nature Center. Help support the Nature Center and become one of our friends of Beaver Lake. You can stop in at the Visitor Center or become a member online. All of your membership dues go to support this beautiful resource in our community that's been here for over 50 years. So we always appreciate the support. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Thanks
Thank
for coming
you.
out.